Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you, Paavo. We're really excited to be here. We are building a accelerator for the KIRAHub ecosystem, and we're planning to give you a lot of useful and good stuff during this fall, the winter, and the spring. So welcome to this stream and welcome to those who are present. Today we have quite a full schedule. First, I will be telling a bit about the accelerator, the key points, not sort of dwelling in detail. The material will be available to you in the net. Also, I will be discussing briefly Nordic Proptech Awards competition and also the criteria. After me, Jarmo will be telling how CubiCasa made it in 2022 in NPA finals and won their stream. And finally, the first actual sort of substance matter in this accelerator, we have Vesterbacka telling about how to make yourself seen, how to make yourself remembered. So it's really about differentiation and also about the ambition level. Okay, first thing, the accelerator, we have 3 phases. We have this fall. Then in December, January will be sort of putting a bit more effort on the NPA finalists. The Finnish finalists will have a chance to get extra coaching for the NPA finals. Last year, we had many winners from Finland, and we want to do a bit better this year. So the key idea behind this accelerator is, of course, help you in business. And what you really need is you need a sound story, compelling story. You need to have your value proposition in place, and you need to be able to pitch. And you will need several pitches. Short pitch for someone you meet, then you may need a sales pitch, and then you might need if in case you are sort of looking for investment, you need to be able to convince the investor. But it all basically relies on you having a credible story and you being able to sort of convince the investor or the jury member on your startup capabilities, ambition, and benefits. So a lot of stuff happening in this accelerator. This is kind of a bird eye look for the whole fall and spring semester. What you need to remember is the key points, key dates today. We will be having pitching training on Thursday, and you need to remember that the deadline for NPA is 1st of October. And once we have the finalists, then we will be sort of looking into how to take your pitch in the NPA finals forward. So what we are really trying to offer this year is coaching by people who have made it or people who know what you need in order to make it. Then we will be offering you several chances in pitching. You probably have noticed that having a good story and a good pitch, it takes time and it changes all the time until you have the perfect pitch. You will be getting some publicity, access to different ecosystem networks like investors, it will be possible to get new acquaintances and connections in the Nordics. Everyone who takes part in NPA is always welcome to the award ceremony in Copenhagen, a great way to meet new people. And then we're sort of trying to find something really nice for the NPA winners and maybe the selected best startups in May, June timeline. So the first real competition will be the NPA. And here we have the criteria used last year. And you need to understand that this criteria, it's really close to a criteria any investor uses. But then there is this sustainability and NPA related sort of thing. So basically you need to prove that you solve something relevant. Then you need to be able to sort of understand first what are the benefits and what is the customer value. And then you need to be able to convey this to the NPA jury. Also, the criteria number 3, it's really common to both NPA and any investor or any client in a sales situation. You need to be able to sort of convey the novelty, the innovation, and the value you provide. Both coming from Finland, which is basically a very small market. Globally, it's almost obsolete. You need to have a product and idea that you can take abroad. If you want to grow, if you want to scale, you have to go abroad. It's not possible in Finland. So you need a solution basically that can be applied in different countries, like CubiCasa in a few minutes. And finally, if you say that my solution provides value, it's pretty vague. You have to enumerate it in dollars, in CO2 tons, anything that matters to the investor or the product user. So, any questions? You can contact any of the people sort of in the core team of this. There is a small technical glitch. The system is a bit slower than we are. But the material will be available to you. Any questions? You have the contact details. One sec, we'll sort out this technical glitch before Jarmo Lumpus from CubiCasa is speaking about pitching, how he did it. This will be sorted out in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. You won't have time to make coffee. Okay. Meet Jarmo from CubiCasa. I hope I pronounced the name correctly.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm sorry about the date. The date is wrong, so not a very good start of my deck. So it's 15th today, I guess. Yeah. Um, I'm from CubiCasa, not anymore, but I used to work there. I founded that company together with Harri Pesola 2013. We built, made some success in the US, and we sold the company to appraisal management company in 21, and now CubiCasa is doing more than 20 million revenue this year, dollars, and most likely value is more than 100 million dollars. But that's I'm out from there, but I'm gonna tell you how we did pitching in those early days. All right. So the timeline. We founded company 2013. Me and Harri, we didn't bankrupt with the previous company, so it was a good start for the next one. And the first pitches, I still remember 2013, it was a midnight Bits Fest in Oulu, northern Finland. And the same happened there. So the technical problems. So I had the monitor in front of me. All my slides went away, so I couldn't see them. And then I had all my pitches, like all the words in papers, in different papers. Each slide was one paper. And then I dropped those, and it was windy. Oulu is very windy city. So all those papers went somewhere else. And I had nothing. And then I stopped in the middle of this pitching session. And the jury members were kind of very empathic, and they said no questions. So this is how I started my pitching career 2013. And since then, like I took some break from pitching after this incidents. But then 2017 we participated a accelerator program in the US, which means that you are forced to pitch your idea quite many times and in front of bigger audiences. So that was like for us a huge chance and opportunity, and really accelerated our business, but also this pitching. They gave us so much good help with pitching, and what really works in the US, in that local market, because Finland, it's totally different. So we got this was real university, accelerated university of pitching for us. And I just had to step out from my comfort zone, go there, 50 investors in audience in Chicago somewhere, and I had to do it. And step by step I learned to do that. And then 2019 we got our first real success. So we won Recotech 2019 here in Helsinki. And that was kind of a huge confidence boost for us and for me, because I was mostly doing those pitches. So this kind of gave us a head start for further success in these pitching competitions. 2021 we won MIPIM, the European contest and data category. We managed to get into the world finals or whatever that is, but we did not won that. So there were three competitors, so US, Europe, and Asia, and we were representing Europe, and unfortunately we did not won that. But that's fine. Then 2022, and why I'm speaking here and why I'm excited about this NPA is that we won that 22. We won the fintech category, and I'm going to tell more about this in my later slides. I have 3 slides, so don't worry. It's not going to be very long presentation. We get better to share his stories. But then after this 22, 23, and until today, I'm not involved in this, but CubiCasa has won several awards and nominations in the US. And but I take some credits from that, because like I was quite heavily involved in this, like how we build the whole story there. And reason for success, so this is storytelling business. I'm claiming any startup business, it's storytelling business in the end. Of course, you need tech, you need service, you need people, you need lots of different kind of things, but you need to build a good story, some kind of a story, like it's like I like to build this like as a personal mission. I'm on a personal mission here, like this is really touching my soul. This is I've had this problem for ages, and I hate that others are having this problem as well. So this, it's of course like the CubiCasa was a floor plan scanner, like how you make that a personal mission. You need to build some bridges there, but still like with your passion and with your kind of a dedication, you can build this like a personal mission. Yeah, simplification. Our first pitch decks were just full of text and so controversial, so many things what we tried to achieve, and so like not many things that we have achieved. So it was a mess. And then we never actually got a like big funding rounds, and I think that was like totally justified because our story sucked at that time. Then my first pitch, actually, which I was telling in the beginning, like in this midnight pitch fest. So I did not write this pitch myself. So it was someone else who wrote that pitch, and somehow I started using my own writings. I always wrote the pitch and then the script. I used my own language, the thing like English words which I know, which is probably a bit more than 100. So you need to limit the story into this, and then I know that certain words are just hard for me to pronounce, so I was avoiding them, of course. So I would never ever let anyone else to write your pitch, except you. Then practicing. Most of these, like if you go, like see the, oh, I'm seeing a different slide. Ah, can you go back to the first slide? Or not first, but second, this one, yeah. Practice a lot. So as you can see, most of these, like, when we were winning, like were the COVID times. So not too many, physical events were taking place. So many of these were online, or you had to, capture a video or something like that. But that helped me to practice a lot in front of the video. And I've taken so many videos of me pitching and looking at it. It's not very amusing, seeing yourself and your own voice and all the mistakes you do. But that gave me, kind of like I just had to do it in order to get everything right. And also the timing, like if you have a 3-minute pitch, it needs to be 3-minute pitch, because they will cut you off. Get feedback not only from the video, but also from others, from jury members, from other people, how they see it, did they understood that, or something like that. And participate competitions. Now the next slide. All right. Oh, yeah. Why pitching? Pitching competitions overall, like we never had money. We only had money for the next 2 weeks or so. So pitching competitions, like they are mostly free of charge. I don't know any competitions which, like they have some kind of a fee. Even just participating might get you attention. And then of course you can use that in your social media, other posts, other, communication. Participate often, and people start understand your pitch better. So like first time when you pitch, people might be looking at it like, oh, I'm not sure if I understand. But when the same people see it again, they are like, they see you as a kind of a familiar. So it might be that, your jury member have seen this already a couple of times. And only like seeing a couple of times means that you've been pitching around. So become a familiar. Like, hey, oh, they are again here. And then, if you are successful, like we won in Recordtech 2019, of course, we use that in our, further, versions of the pitch deck. And of course, like, oh, they won this. So they've been validated already. Like VCs are doing, VCs are, pretty much never, investing alone. So they always want to, have another VC to validate that case. So same here. When you have won 2 times, then the 3rd time is so easy. Yeah, and more badges, and this was in our NPA. All these badges: CBRE, Propel, Build World, Top 100, Startup 100, Proptech Award, whatever those are. More badges you have in your pitch deck, more credibility. Even they are like whatever, but still it's a badge. It's something that you've been nominated to something. Yeah, confidence for live presentation. So, like my presentation today is a bit different compared to this 2013. So, more you are in front of the audience, more, better you come and more confidence you have. And it doesn't really require you to start remembering everything by heart, You just produce, things. It's not just about winning pitching competitions. Like even we haven't win anything, I still see that it's been quite crucial, vital part of our, storytelling getting better. Simple pitch, and also the simple pitch makes everyone a salesperson in your team. Even your, customer service, even, technical people, more simpler it is, the better they have chance to really promote this thing and convey the message that what we are really doing and who we are helping and why we are doing this. It makes, like pitching makes you remove all the unnecessary, this simplification. Better pitch might get you better talent as well, Like if you are into something and like you have a compelling story, I would say that it definitely will get you better talents. And then of course investors. Investors, like their attention span is quite short, I would say. It's much longer than with real estate agents, but it's not long. And if you don't convince them in 20 to 30 seconds, I would say that they lose their interest. All right, next and last slide. Nordic Proptech Award, so 22. So how I prepare for this? So at that time we had quite lots of success already. Our story was solid. What I did was that I kept the same template, same tested template, and the overall storyline there. I didn't start to change everything, Like there was no need for pivot at this stage. The change was in timing because it was a 5-minute pitch in the finals, whereas I think in the semifinals it was 3 minutes. I'm not absolutely sure. It's so many years ago. But what I did was that I just added a couple of slides, not really text, but visuals. And then I practiced to speak maybe a bit, slower and pointing certain things and kept some pauses. Yeah, previous pitch competition wins got us pretty good advantage. Somewhat, I don't know, fair, unfair advantage, but of course our success at that point, our revenue was $5 million, and most of that came from US. So we had a pretty good traction from the target market already. So, and having, quote from Fannie Mae that, hey, this is, disrupting the whole mortgage business in the US. So of course, like we had a really compelling story. So we didn't want to change that at all. Yeah, semifinals live presentation in Recordtech. We won our, fintech track there, and then finals were on online presentation, and the results were published at the later stage. And as a win prize, we got 2 tickets to MIPIM Cannes. and then some kind of a shared pool there. And the benefits, kind of repeating maybe myself, as we had one earlier, so it just validated our success. So there was kind of, hey, okay, they won earlier, yet another win for them, so it must be really good. And after this, we actually stopped pitching in Europe, because it wasn't our target market, and we did not see too much benefits from that. And then I also left the company. So this was kind of a like a last pitching competition for us. Then of course, participating MIPing, it got us lots of contacts in Europe. And even it was just Nordic Proptech Awards, I definitely think that this was identified in the US, because US folks think that Nordic Proptech overall and our digitalization is quite ahead of what they are doing there. So even it was just Nordic, it still like I would say had help in the US as well. But that was it. Our story, how pitching overall, not only this NPA, but how kind of perfecting, optimizing this pitching process, how it helped us. And I see tremendous help for the whole business, not just pitch competition. Yes. Yeah, at least I can hear you.
Hi, I'm Sina from iPrefab, and I wonder what was the difference of the pitching for real estate agents, as you mentioned in your talks, to the VC pitching during your stories. Thank you.
Yeah, well, totally different. Yeah. So and like I said, like we did not succeed with VCs. We like going to US VCs 2015, 16, 17, and saying that we have this floor plan thing, and like floor plan at that time, like less than 5% of the residential real estate listing had the floor plan. So like no one really cared at that time. Like we were in San Francisco, tech runs, VR, virtual reality, all other stuff. AI started to be some kind of a buzzword, but floor plans, like what the heck? Actually, real estate agents did not care about our solution. It was actually real estate photographers, and it was definitely not in our first in the list, but they somehow started using our application, and then the reason being that they tolerate like beta level software. Real estate agents like no, like if it's 7 seconds, and if it doesn't work perfectly, then go away. But it's totally different message. VCs have a different attention, like interest, than the real estate agent. So you always need to craft your message toward the audience, or what you think that it's important in your audience. So always like focus on that, even though that okay, 90% of the people are something, but then 10% are what you really want, and you want their attention. Make it for this 10%, not for the 90. Don't try to please everyone. Just go for the the most interested, the most important audience there. All right, any other questions? If not, I'll pass this mic to
Very good. Yes, or actually, yeah, I don't know, where do you want me?
Somewhere you can be right there.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Yeah, very, very good points in the previous presentation. So I think that the best way to learn how to pitch is obviously to pitch, and the second best is to listen to other people pitch. And yeah, I think that that is something that I really encourage everybody to do, because you should always be ready to pitch. You know, that you never know who you can like run into, and also, I mean, what Jarmo was saying, that it's very important for like everybody in the company also to kind of like know the story and what we're like actually doing. So I think that yeah, I totally agree about the storytelling part. That is something that is like super important, and people remember stories. That's kind of like how we all remember. And actually, on that note about storytelling and stories, I always ask startups that pitch to me, and I get pitched, you know, every day by a few. And I always kind of like have the question that like, what can I tell my friends about what you are doing? And I use that question because in order for me to tell my friends about like whatever you're up to, first of all, I need to get excited about like what it is. But then in order for me to be able to tell what it is and why I'm excited and all of that, it has to be very simple. Because otherwise, kind of like you have this broken telephone and then, you know, like doesn't work. So you have to have exciting and simple message that is very easy to kind of like repeat. And I think that's very clear to you now. That was all about floor plans, right? So that's you can also make like very exciting, because not everybody's doing floor plans. So I think this is something that again you can stand out. Probably at that TechCrunch or whatever event in the US, you were the only ones doing floor plans, pretty sure. So I mean, if you're the only one, then by default you're like the best, and you know, you're like very unique, and people remember that, hey, there's all these like hundreds of companies doing VR, AR, whatever, but I bumped into these guys and they were doing floor plans. This is like super cool. So, you know, like this is also something that is very important. Then another thing on that note is that the name of the company should also be something that you remember. And I always share this, and this was a few years ago at Slush. There was these three young Australian women that were pitching their like super cool startup. They were doing some like female nutrition and like super cool service. But then I immediately forgot about the name of the company, because it was one of these generic, you know, like doesn't say anything kind of thing. So then for me, you know, to tell my friends, impossible. I could tell the story that, hey, I met with these, you know, three young ladies. They had this like super cool service, but don't remember. And if you don't remember the name of the company, you can't even Google it. Then actually, I think 2 years later, I met them at Startup Sauna, and I told them the exact same thing, that, hey, I've been talking to lots of people about you guys, but I didn't remember the name of your company, so like useless. So always think about that. And that's actually then, you know, like back to the storytelling, that I always start talking about where I started. So I always say that I started at the original tech startup, you know, the company that Bill and Dave started in their garage, 1939, Palo Alto, California. And then when I have younger audience, I always had to add that I wasn't there, you know, in 1939. But I had the opportunity to meet with both Bill and Dave when they were still around. And they were fantastic entrepreneurs, because not only did they start HP, you know, so this was Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. So Hewlett Packard is the company that they started. Not only did they start HP in that, you know, famous garage, but that like famous garage is considered the birthplace of Silicon Valley. So after Bill and Dave, you know, you got Intel, Apple, Google, long list of successful companies. And I think that, you know, it's safe to say that none of us can live a day in our life without using some technology out of there. I mean, starting with our phones that are powered by either Apple or Google. And then if you look at also kind of like the Silicon Valley model, Bill and Dave met at Stanford, and then their professor suggested, okay, why don't you start a company? Then they went to their garage, and okay, the rest is history. Same thing happened many years later. Sergey and Larry, they met at Stanford as well. Then they went to, okay, not their own garage, but they went to Susan Wojcicki's garage in Menlo Park, and Google happened. So I always say that Silicon Valley model, super easy. You meet at one of the universities, Stanford, Berkeley, you name it. Then you go to your garage, and magic happens. I mean, that's like Silicon Valley in a nutshell. And that's actually how the world works. So it's like very simple. I mean, of course, where do you meet talented co-founders, potential co-founders for your startup. You meet typically at university or like where you find high volume of like talented young people. So of course it happens around the universities, and I think that it's the same thing here. I mean, we have had a lot of startups coming out of like the Aalto University, but all universities have that kind of like same thing, and then you just need to kind of like make it bigger. But that also then brings back to Slush. So probably all of you have heard about Slush. I don't need to ask that question kind of like here, but it's actually pretty cool that if you go around the startup ecosystem. So I was actually in Athens now for a couple of days, and we're working with a few startups and investors and all that, and everybody there also knows about Slush. But that wasn't always like the case. And Slush basically now is the biggest and best startup event on the planet. Last year we had over 4 trillion in venture capital, so it's the biggest gathering of venture capital any given time anywhere on the planet. And it's in Helsinki in Finland in November. And then always when I talk about this in rest of Europe, then I always tell them, like last time I checked Helsinki, it's in Europe. So that means that like we're winning, because there's nothing like that, nothing like Slush in the US or China or like anywhere else on the planet. So clearly, Europe is winning. So we need to get away from this narrative that we have in Europe that, like we can't compete with the US or China or whatever. But I mean, come on, they didn't even like figure out this floor plan thing. So, like a good example of the opportunities out there. But I think that this is also an example of this kind of like storytelling thing that I don't know how many times, talk to various European startups, and then they're like super concerned that how can we compete with, the Americans and, like the Chinese and all of that. And I say, like, of course you can. I mean, it's just a matter of like ambition and attitude and mindset and all of that. But it's also super annoying and disturbing to me that I was in New York now like twice during the summer, and then I went to this startup event, and then you bump into these super arrogant Americans that will tell you, oh, but it must be so difficult, like you're from Europe and there's like too much regulation, you can't make anything happen and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And of course it's bullshit, but I mean, it's basically something that many people then kind of like buy into this, and then, I get told by European entrepreneurs that, yeah, we'd be successful if we were in the US, but here in Europe. And then I'm like, hey, that's like bullshit excuse. Of course, you can make anything happen here in Europe. But it's again that if you really start believing that, oh, it's so difficult, I always ask, okay, how many have tried to set up a company in the US? Like it's super competitive and it's not easy. And I mean, it's again, one of these things, an example of very powerful like storytelling. And we should be always very careful with these kind of like narratives, because not all stories are true, but if you repeat them enough times, they might sound like it. But anyway, so then if you look at Slush, because I kind of talk about like differentiation and all that, so the world is full of what I call wannabe Silicon Valley events. I mean, that was a starting point. I mean, if you look at, we actually started Slush because 2007 I gave a talk to 600 students at Aalto about startups, entrepreneurship, my own like entrepreneurial journey, all of that. And then I asked the students, how many want to start a company or join a startup, once you graduate or even before. And in 2007, out of 600 of our brightest minds, three raised their hand. Everybody wanted to go and work for like one of the big guys, Nokia, Kone, Wärtsilä, maybe the government. And of course there's nothing wrong with that, but that also means that people were very, very focused on maintaining the status quo. And if we have everybody just maintaining the status quo, then we'll get what we see in Japan, and also actually in many places around the world, that you get like stagnation, no progress, no nothing. So we had to do something about that, and that actually is why we started Slush. So we didn't start Slush to make it, the biggest and best startup event on the planet. Of course, I mean, that also happened, and that was the ambition. But we started Slush to change the mindset. That was like really the reason. So that's why we started Slush in 2008. And then, 5 years later, after Slush, we grew it from first Slush 300 people to like 20,000. And then I went back to Aalto, same talk, same question, more than half the hands went up. And actually there was a study 2 weeks ago that now more than half of young people in Finland want to start a company. And this was like across the board, like all young people, which is like pretty amazing. And at Aalto, it's like 80%, so that's even better. But anyway, so with Slush, and why Slush became the biggest and best startup event on the planet, is that the world is full of these wannabe Silicon Valley events. I mean, you organize it in some nice, like, sunny location, like Silicon Valley, and you hope that it's going to be almost like Silicon Valley. And I don't know how many of these I've been to. I mean, there's even like one event in Lisbon in Portugal, and they kind of like have the same confused like thinking there that okay, just because it's like nice and sunny, it's like the Silicon Valley of Europe. So they don't understand that actually it's like Florida, with Portugal, it's where all people go to die, so it has very little to do with Silicon Valley except the weather. But you can of course easily get confused like that. And this is, by the way how you destroy other people's brand and narrative. But yeah, anyway, because I always, when I meet with Portuguese people or anybody, I always ask that, do you know where the young Portuguese people are? So anybody here know? Not in Portugal. Yeah, but anyway, because there's like no opportunity, so they already like left. But anyway, with Slush, I mean, there's so many of these like wannabe Silicon Valley events all over the place. I mean, I was in Tanzania, and there's a place called Silicon Dar, Dar es Salaam. So Silicon Dar, that's like the road where all the technology companies hang out. So of course it's Silicon Dar. And I mean, there's I always hear a story that before the pandemic, I was in Beijing startup event, and then I'm told, hey, Beijing, Silicon Valley of China. And then the following day, I went to Hangzhou, which is home of Alibaba and NetEase and Wahaha, a bunch of these like Chinese unicorn companies, Chinese success stories. And of course, I was told that, hey, Peter, Hangzhou, Silicon Valley of China. And then you go to Tokyo, and they will say that they're the Silicon Valley of Asia, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of these like wannabe Silicon Valley events. So with Slush, when everybody else is doing this like wannabe Silicon Valley thing, we decided we organize Slush in November. And we all know that when you get here in November, it's cold, it's dark, and there's slush on the ground. So it's not the Silicon Valley, it's better. It's much, much better because it's different. Okay, then of course it has to be like true and real. So how is it different? Biggest and best startup event on the planet is run, organized, delivered by young people. Last year at Slush, we had 1,600 young people volunteering from 60 countries. They're in charge. They make it happen. And when I say that we put young people in charge, I mean it. It's not like many of these other events that, we have volunteers and we have young people as well. Okay, so what do? They make coffee and hand out badges. Of course, those are important life skills as well, but maybe not like the most important skills if you want to become like a future startup entrepreneur. And with Slush, we have now like many, many examples of this, that you join Slush as a volunteer, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you learn how to build the biggest and best startup event. And then after that, you go out and you build the biggest and best startups. Like looking at like what Mickey and the guys we did with Volt, not too bad. And we have many, many examples just like that. So again, learning by doing. So yes, we can tell a lot of stories, but they actually have to be true. And here we can like back it up with fact. And of course we won, because everybody else doing all of these wannabe, Silicon Valley events like, Web Summit, I think it's called in Lisbon. And they even have now like Web Summit in Qatar, known for its many startups and entrepreneurship. And I heard that only like 5 migrant workers died last year when they built a Web Summit. So of course, huge improvement over the 20 that in the previous years. And we can't even compare with the World Cup, where a lot more people died. But anyway, so of course we won with Slush because we did this very differently from like everybody else. So I think this is something that's also very, very important, that, whatever you're doing, do things differently. You want to stand out. I think this is something that is very, very important. And I mean, that was like a very good story about floor plans, because I mean, if everybody else is doing like some super boring like VR or whatever, if you are doing floor plans, you're going to stand out automatically. And I remember I was at Slush Tokyo on the startup pitching competition like jury. And then I think this was like semi-final or something. We had about 10 startups, and then they all pitch, and there's, I think, 3 startups where this was the time when everything was becoming tokenized. So there was like tokenized Wi-Fi, and there was tokenized, I don't know, natural resources or like forests or whatever it was. But anyway, so then we get together, jury, and then first thing we did, okay, yeah, all of these companies doing tokenizing this, tokenizing that, gone, because I mean they're all the same, couldn't tell the difference. And then we picked like a winner. I don't even remember who it was. But then one of the guys who was working on this tokenized, I think, Wi-Fi, he then had this after party, or having kind of like a few beers after the event. He came up to me and said that, okay, that Peter, like, why didn't we get to the final? And I said that, yeah, and then I shared with him that, like, okay, you need to stand out. And then I asked him that, hey, a couple of years ago, I was in Barcelona. There was this, like, that was the time of like this Web 2.0 or something. So we had this Mobile 2.0 event. And I said that, hey, do you know who won the pitching competition? And of course, he couldn't know because he wasn't there. But then I told him that the guy from New York in the white shoes, he won. And that's okay. So I said, exactly. So, the thing is that there were many, many good pitches, but this guy from New York, all things being equal, he was the one with the white shoes. So of course he won. So it's like you have to basically always think about how do you differentiate and how will people remember you. So you need to find your own, like, white shoes, red hoodie, funny hat. All things being equal, the guy with the funny hat will win because he's different. So my point there was that, if you're just, again, now everything is AI, but I mean, it's a little bit the same thing that telling you now that, hey, I have a new company, we have a website. And then it's like, yeah, so of course I have a website. Everybody has a website. And with AI and all of that, I mean, I would be very surprised if you told me that I have this startup and we're not doing AI. And it's okay, interesting, tell me more. So you're doing like something like handcrafted or something. So always keep this in mind that all of these like buzzwords and whatever happens to be the like technology or whatever that you're supposed to use today, everybody's doing that. So it gives you no differentiation at all. It's like waste of time. So this is also like when everybody was doing, we want to be Silicon Valley of this and that. We said that, hey, we don't want to be Silicon Valley actually because it's already there. You can't lead by following. So what we are building here in Finland, in the finest Bay Area, is much, much bigger. So we are doing Slush. And okay, it became the biggest and best because it's different and hence better. So that's kind of like what you need to do. And another example on this kind of like branding side, also early days, or kind of like year after Slush, we then got all these like Aalto ES and Boost in Turku and Stream in Tampere and all these like student-led startup organizations on all the university campuses in Finland. Got those going, and then Kristo and the guys who were doing Aalto ES, they then started this Aalto Venture Garage. So that was like their accelerator program, very appropriate as we are doing accelerator program here. They called it the Aalto Venture Garage. And then I met with the guys and said that, okay, very good, but what do you think will happen when you pitch this to, like any media, let's say TechCrunch, VentureBeat, you name it? And I answered my own question and said, like, nothing, because all of these people, all of these like media, they have heard hundreds, if not thousands of like various garage stories. There are so many garages in, like Silicon Valley, home of this and that company. So it's like super not interesting. So I said that let's call it Startup Sauna instead. And we did. And then every single intro, you always started that, we have this like youth-led, student-led accelerator program called the Startup Sauna. And then, what? Are you pitching naked in there or what? Can we see it? And then they all came to see it and wrote stories about it. And I think that this is again like, same thing, but, very, very different kind of like branding and creates a very different kind of like image in your head. But if you just, it's just another one of these like garage, whatever, accelerator, incubator, couldn't care less. So you always need to think about, how you stand out and how people will remember you. And I mean, as I worked on Angry Birds as well. So Angry Birds is a fantastic example of exactly that kind of brand, because when the first time you hear Angry Birds, you will ask why. Why are the birds angry? And once you ask that question, brand is stuck in your head forever. And that's what you want to have with your brand, that it creates ideally a question or some kind of reaction, so that you don't end up with the three young Australian ladies that they have a fantastic, like startup and concept, but can't remember what it was called. So that's something that you really should think about. And when you are a startup, the brand should work for you. So you actually wanted to create some kind of reaction, an idea like a question. I think that's like super important, because most startups, we don't have unlimited resources and unlimited money to throw at marketing and kind of like the whole go-to-market. So make the brand work for you. And the brand is not just, like some kind of, let's say, the name or the visual representation of what you do, but it's like everything. So it's the whole story, everything. So, when I say like branding is everything, really mean it. It's something that is really, it has to be like you and what you do. So that's kind of like super important. And also, I mean, by coincidence, my title at Rovio was Mighty Eagle. It wasn't like CXO something, but it was Mighty Eagle. So every time I handed over my business cards, because we still used those back then, that always created questions. So like, what exactly is it that you do? And then I say, okay, it's like the most powerful like bird in the Angry Birds universe, and kind of like that's what I do. If you play the game, it's like the silver bullet that like clears the level and blah blah blah. But anyway, so then again you get into the storytelling, and you get people will remember you and what you do. So that's kind of like what it's all about. But yeah, I have many examples like this, and being a Finnish person, I can talk for hours. But I think that I will not do that now. But actually, let's open up for questions. So I think that a lot more valuable if we make it interactive. And if you have anything that you want to ask.
I can start off from over here.
Yep.
Something you mentioned and Jarmo mentioned in his presentation was confidence.
Mhm.
You said you talk to startups, sometimes they're like, hey, we can't, compete with China or the US. Do you think that's just the way we are as Finns? We're built this way, where we don't have the confidence in our own products and solutions sometimes. Where do you think that stems from, and what do you think would be the fix?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like ice hockey before 1995. So many of us remember what happened in 1995. That was kind of the first time we actually won. And after that, we've, of course, always gone to kind of like world championships in ice hockey or Olympics or any competition. We go there to win. We don't go there that, hopefully, we'll get the medal and not get relegated to Group B or whatever. So I think that what is really important is that we have role models. I think that is something that is very, very important. And it's a little bit like, when we were doing Angry Birds, then Ilkka and the guys were at Supercell, and they were looking at, and Ilkka said this actually many times, that they were looking at like, hey, if Rovio guys can do that, so can we. And of course they could, and they built something that's 10 times bigger. So I think that you have to kind of like have role models then to show that actually you can. And I think that sports analogies work very well in this, because that's really, kind of like what it takes. And it's all like competition and all that. If you never seen anybody be successful, then you don't even know that it's possible. I mean, if like you only see successful ice hockey players, then you wouldn't kind of like then imagine that can we also be successful at basketball or something like that. So I think that that it's very, very important to have role models. And then I think that very quickly you learn. I mean, it's very important that you actually go out there, meet with people. Yes, you should go to Silicon Valley. It's a fantastic place. You can learn like a lot from like that environment. And I spent a lot of time there. So I think it's very important, because then you realize that these people are just like, you and me. There's like no difference. And I think that's also what we wanted to create with Slush, that it doesn't have like a lot of these like VIP this and VIP that, but you can actually talk with all the people. Of course, now the scale makes it, let's say, somewhat challenging sometimes, but fortunately there's like hundreds and hundreds of very targeted like side events. So you can go, if you're interested in Proptech, you go to that event, or if you want to know about, I don't know, AI in defense, you can find an event like that. So I think that's one way of like filtering and meeting kind of like the right people. But I think that is something that is very, very important, that you and this comes to the pitching and the storytelling and all of that, it's not just this kind of like formal like pitching, but it's just like talking to people, sharing your idea, because they will help you make your idea better. You'll get feedback from I think that's my experience, that wherever you go, people will help you make the idea better for that particular market, or whatever it might be. So go out there and learn. So it really is about learning by doing. Yes.
Hi, Peter. It's Sina from iPrefab, and we are awarded as a top 100 slash this year.
Very good. Congratulations.
Yeah, hope we bring the award back to Finland from Netherlands.
Yeah, you should.
I'm confident to participate. I wonder for as a Proptech product, we are focusing on the conservative industry as a construction nature, and in an industry which is much behind digitalizations in comparison of other industries. What is your particular point of view in pitching in this ecosystem as a conservative and much behind of digitalization?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that I always get this, but like we are in this like B2B, and our customers are like super boring, conservative corporations and so on. But I think that, I worked at boring corporations. I worked for HP like many years, and we wrote this little book, not the big bazaar book, but that was like a bunch of like these kind of like rules that we wanted to kind of like communicate on like how to do things. Which in a big corporation can be like quite interesting. But one of the things we started with was that boredom is not a corporate objective. And the point was there that nowhere does it say that it has to be boring or conservative or like anything. And I think that is actually quite a big opportunity, that if you have customers that are conservative, maybe, like a bit behind in some areas, then you have an opportunity to really like stand out, because many people will think that that we need to act kind of like our customers, and I think that this is also one thing that many of these corporate press releases or company press releases in general are all the same, because people think that this is how you're supposed to do it. It's supposed to be boring and not stand out. But of course, that's completely the wrong thing to do. Whatever you do, company, startup, big corporation or smaller company, why do it if it's just like more of the same? It's nobody cares. You want to make it human. You want to stand out. You want to make sure that people remember it. How many press releases have we read that we actually remember? Very, very few. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 or even 10,000. Because they're all like, written in a certain way so that they like fit and conform. So I think that be yourself, and it's very good if you do things that are considered crazy in that, like because then they will remember that, hey, there was this like crazy guy, who had this. I don't know what you do, but whatever. So it's again coming back to this, that if everybody's doing VR, AR, and all of that, and then somebody does floor plans, that's already like maybe the only thing that you will remember from that event is the one that was different. Yep.
Hi, Peter. I'm Jaakko from jaakko.com.
Yeah, I guessed as much. So
And you talked about the importance of the name, and we picked Jaakko because we want to launch from Finland, and it's something that people feel kind of trust towards, and they remember it, and it's interesting. And in Finland, it has really worked. So if I mention Jaakko to anybody, usually they remember it when we meet the next time. But what's your thinking for going with a name like Jaakko to abroad, like something that really doesn't mean anything? Do you think it's something that we can work with? Because to me, it's a positive problem when we start scaling abroad. So we can do it.
But I think that the kind of like trick there is that you want people to remember it, and I think that it might be difficult for people then outside of Finland to remember Jaakko. So you have to test and see like how to do that. Then one thing to or kind of like maybe like to help with the remembering is, of course, that if you make it the visual like image very different, you know, and or something like that, that could help. Or then, you know, you can also have like add, you know, like some other word to that, so that you get like combination. But anyway, it's something that you can like need to test. But I think that you need to stand out. I think that is like super important. And then one thing that I didn't talk too much about here now, but ambition. So I think that we touched on it a little bit, but I think that is something that in Finland, but I would say most of Europe, we are not ambitious enough. So I think this is one thing that we also should work on, because there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't build the biggest and best here in Europe or like anywhere else, but especially here. I mean, absolutely no reason. But many times we don't have the kind of like the confidence to go out there and say, hey, by the way, this is going to become the biggest and best, and you know, all of that. So I think that is something that is very, very important, and it's important to set kind of like very ambitious, even like targets and goals that feel impossible. I think that is something that is very important. And I mean, this is again like this ice hockey analogy that, okay, if your target is to be in the top 5 in ice hockey, then, you know, like that's, first of all, nobody gets excited about that. That's like, really, you know, like it's so I think that you need to have ambitious goals that are kind of like very difficult, but still achievable, but you then get kind of like the team on board and, hey, this is where we're going. I mean, early days of Angry Birds, when we had, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million, I told the team that, hey, we're going to go for 100 million. And I was like, hey, Peter, you're crazy. It's impossible. Nobody has done that. Because, I mean, Tetris had been around for 20 years back then. And not even Tetris, which was kind of like considered the biggest game ever until then, that not even Tetris has gotten to that. So, you know, can't be done. And then, okay, turned out that we actually could do that, and we got to the 100 million in like 15 months. And what was important with that is that after you then achieve this almost impossible like goal, then after that it becomes easy. Then people start believing that, of course, and you know, like you create this like winning team that you start believing that, of course, we can win, and we can win like anybody. And I think that that's also like, again, back to the ice hockey and sports, that of course, if you never won anything, which was the case for Finland until like 1995, it was almost, you know, that, oh, we will never win. But then once you can like get there, then it became easy. Okay, we don't win every year, but at least, you know, we go there and we play to win, and not, you know, like, okay, let's try to make it into kind of like the top 5 or whatever. So I think that is something that really think it's important, that we should be very, very ambitious. And when you then start really thinking about it, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't make it like 10 times bigger. But I always use this 10 times. I mean, many other people do the same, but the reason for that is that if you think about, okay, that let's double the business, you can typically do that if you just like, let's work a bit harder, longer days, whatever, and you might get to the double. But 10 times you can't do by just working a little bit harder. You have to really rethink, you know, how you go to market, and how can you get to like 10x. Or what do you think? You might have heard this before. Yeah. But anyway, so I think that it's very easy to kind of like limit your own ambition. Then like, okay, that, you know, maybe we go for like number 5 because it's still kind of okay, and we still make. But the thing is that if you do that, then I think that you're not going to be very successful, because it's not kind of like a winning mindset. So being more ambitious is super, super important. Yes. Anything else?
Yeah. So you can say that I will be the best, or my company will be the biggest in a certain business. But that's not enough that you say it. What else do you have to have?
Yeah.
A plan, something
Yeah, very good point. So I mean, again, this is also, of course, core to any kind of like ambition, but also like then the storytelling, the whole like narrative is that it's very good if the story is actually true. So it's not, because I mean it's very easy to say that, oh, we're going to be the best, but you know, then okay, if I stick to the ice hockey, but yeah, you don't really like, you know, put in the work, and we don't really need to practice because we already decided that we're going to win, and then you're up for like not so nice like surprise when the people beat you, you know, 10-0 or something like that. So I think that of course you have to have a plan, and the whole point there is that okay, you set you know, crazy big ambition, but then it also forces you to think how to get there. So you need to have the steps, and also it's good to do a bit of planning. I think that's always like good. But what I always say is that don't think, do think. What I mean by that is also that you don't need to have a perfect plan. You need to know where you're going to go, because I mean, if we don't know where we're going, we're not going to get there. So it's good to kind of like know the goal. But then typically it's not like, okay, we're just going there straight line, but I mean, we run into various obstacles. There's this thing called competition in many markets. If we're doing anything relevant, then, you know, probably other people are trying to get the same. So it will be like a more of a, you know, zigzag to get to the goal. But I think that then you need to build an organization where, first of all, people are not afraid of trying new things. That's something that is super, super important. And then also that all of these things, I always compare it to kind of like how we all learn how to walk. So it's not like we get up one day and we decide that today I'm going to walk. No, it's basically that we try to get up, we fall, we try to get up, fall, and then we eventually figure it out. And I think that that's like building a business, building a company, yeah, pretty much doing anything. If you're doing new things, probably you will fail because you never done it before, but that's okay. Then you learn, and that's why, again, like big believer in that, like learning by doing is kind of like the best way to do things. And yeah, you need to basically not just set ambitious goals, but you also need to build a structure, build your organization, your culture, your everything, so that you can actually get there. Because yeah, otherwise it's a little bit like you know, Russia, that, you know, who cares, we'll throw 1 million people at it, and if it's not enough, we'll kill another 1 million, and then, you know, like try to win. So that's not like a very good approach and strategy. So you need to be a bit smarter about it.
I wonder how you answer some advisors or the juries about the innovation and innovativity of your products. If someone challenge you're not innovative, how did you answer?
So then that's probably example of some ignorant person that doesn't even understand what we're doing, because why would you do anything not innovative? And I think that we got this question many times. I mean, again, if you take like Rovio and Angry Birds, we were not running around saying that we are very innovative and we are doing innovative things, because I mean, why would you do anything else? And I always say, you know, like typically you have a lot of big organizations, big corporations, and then they have all kinds of innovation centers and programs and all that. Why? Because they're not innovative. So I mean, that is like the first indication. So maybe the way I would answer it, that in our company we don't have an innovation department. And I would leave it at that. And the smart people will figure it out, like why that is. But I think that, but I mean, of course, it could be that maybe what you're doing is not very innovative. So, you know, it might be true. I have no idea what you're doing. So you know, maybe they're right. But I think that, you know, the thing is that I don't think that I have ever been told that what you're doing is not innovative. So for me, it's like pretty like, you know, it's a new question. Let's put it that way. So I can't relate.
Yeah, this might be a bit unrelated to the topic, But then if we look at the world today, it's totally different. It was 2 years ago. So how do you personally feel about US versus China?
I think that it's very important that we build kind of like the strongest economy on the planet here, and here meaning like Europe. So I think that is super important in the current like geopolitical situation. So that we need to do that. Then I'm also a bit, let's say, contrarian in that I actually think that Europe has already won, and I'm not like super concerned about kind of like US or China in that context. I mean, of course, we need to do our job and we need to compete, but I think that we are in a very, very good position because deciding factor on who's gonna win is actually people, it's talent. And right now we have a situation where everybody wants to be European, everybody wants to live in Europe for like obvious reasons, but I mean we have good kind of like European values, you know, the liberté, égalité, fraternité, as our French friends would say. But this is something that now, yeah, I said I was in the US like 2 times during the summer, and people are scared and people are afraid of like saying what they think, and yeah, it's crazy kind of like change, and I think that is something is that very difficult to see how the US will kind of like ever recover from what is kind of like going on right now. That once you destroy the trust in key institutions, it takes generations to get that back. So it's like not looking like very good. Then one example that I use, and it's actually educational, so I don't like to explain why I think that we have a very good chance of like winning, and then of course we need to define what that winning means. But if you look at like the really big picture, I think that here in Finland and most part of Europe we have like pretty good educations. I mean that's like always like a good start. And I was in Singapore a while ago, and I met with 20 or so parents, and I wanted to explain what the difference is between education in Singapore and education here in Finland. So I don't know if you know, but I mean, Singapore has the most like fucked up educational system on the planet. So I mean, it's like super, super bad. And then it comes as a shock to many people that what, you know, aren't they always like in the top 3 these various PISA rankings and all that? Yes, but that has very little to do with reality. So I asked the 20 or so parents that, you know, what will happen if I ask a young Singaporean that has gone through the system in Singapore, I ask him or her to draw something. So do you know what will happen? All the parents knew the answer, every single one. And they said, Peter, of course. He or she will ask, what? What should I draw? A cat. What color? Black. What size? Huge. What? Because the educational system is all about telling people what to do and what not to do, and please shut up. And of course, if you look at then, you know, this, it means that was very good when people worked in offices, in factories, and just being told what to do. But unfortunately, AI, technology, robots are removing most of the job opportunities for the what people. So you need to kind of like do better than that. And in fact, you can't hire anybody in Singapore because they don't know what to do. So that's kind of like a big problem. So yes, you can be top of whatever like PISA rankings, but if you're unemployable, you know, it doesn't really help much. Then if you look at the same kind of like question in Finland, if I ask a young Finnish person the same question that's gone through education here in Finland, and I think that we can apply to most of Europe, but it's let's say especially true here. So what will happen when I ask a young Finnish person to draw something? So most likely that young person will say, piirrä ite. Why don't you draw it yourself? Because we teach our young people to question everything, including authority. And you could never have that in Singapore or say China. If I, you know, start comparing the Chinese president to a cartoon character, probably you will never hear from me again. Or if I dare to criticize the great leader, you know, in America, most likely I will wake up in alligator Alcatraz or maybe even in a prison in El Salvador. No questions asked. So authoritarian regimes will not be able to win this, because we need to have people that are not afraid to question things. And I mean, this Finnish example, and we all know, us who work here, that the same is true in most companies here. That if I ask an employee to draw something, most likely he or she will say, why don't you draw it yourself? And then in order for me to make something happen, I need to explain that, hey, you are so much better at drawing than I am, and we have a very important campaign. I really need your help. We need to provide people, and this is especially true with young people, meaning. Why? Why do I have to do this? And I think that is actually very, very healthy. You should always question everything, because that is how we make progress. We question the status quo. We question standard business practice. We question how houses have been built, or floor plans designed, or like whatever it might be. But I think that this is something that why I'm very, very confident that long term we're in very, very good shape. And again, you have to create an environment where you're allowed to think, where you're allowed to question, and where you're allowed to disagree. And this is really very, very kind of fundamental thing that unfortunately is under attack in many places. And it's not going to be good for the economies in question. Then I would maybe throw in a wild card that with AI and all of this stuff, it gives China and these guys a chance. So we still need to do our job, but yeah, it's interesting times. And it's perfectly okay to disagree with anything I said. So I expect you to question. But yeah.
Hey, one comment on something that helped. Engineers who are not sort of afraid of calling people they don't know. In a corporation I worked, we had this concept of power hour. You can do anything. You can call the president. And it helped.
Yeah. Actually, and then before you know it, every hour is power hour. So I mean, that's how it should be. But yeah, very good. So we're done?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kiitos. Oli hyvä. Niin joo. Okay, many thanks, Peter and Jarmo. Two very good presentations. I would like to remind you that we will be continuing this on Thursday. We will be discussing how to pitch, and we will be having Mike Bradshaw, a great teacher and a coach on pitching. So be there. It will be a hybrid event. You can take part from anywhere. And also, if you're planning to take part in the NPA this year, we will arrange so that you get to pitch and you will get individual companies. You will get individual sort of comments on your pitch and advice on sort of how to make it better. So please contact us through email, or on Thursday we will have a look on the calendar and book you a slot. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then the next really important date after Thursday, the 18th, is 1st of October. That's when you need to submit your text for NPA. Don't be late. Practice with us, and maybe we'll get all the finalists from Finland this year. Thank you.